Today on Answers with Bayless Conley.
That's why Jesus stands in Revelation 1:18 and says, yes, I was dead, but behold, I'm alive forevermore, and I have the keys of hell and of death.
Hi, I'm Bayless Conley. In life, we all face uncertainty, whether it's financial troubles, relationship valleys, a health crisis, or just trying to discover your purpose. One thing is for certain, God sees you. He loves you, and no matter what you're facing, He has the answers.
I'd like to open your Bible, if you've got one with you, to Psalm 22. We're actually going to briefly look at Psalm 22, briefly look at Psalm 23, and then we're going to concentrate on Psalm 24. Psalm 24 is going to be the main dish tonight, or today. But actually, all three of the Psalms are connected. They're all prophetic. They're all written by David. And they all point to Jesus. Psalm 22 has been called the Psalm of the Cross. Psalm 23 has been called the Psalm of the Crook, meaning the shepherd's crook. Psalm 24 has been called the Psalm of the Crown. Savior, shepherd, and sovereign. They all point to different aspects of who Jesus is and what He has done for us. And I've actually taught in depth on Psalm 22 and Psalm 23 before. That's why we're just going to briefly look at them. But let's begin by just noticing some things from Psalm 22. It was written about 1,000 years before Jesus died on the cross. And yet David, as he pens these words, inspired by the Holy Spirit, is so accurate and so detailed as he describes the crucifixion. You would think that he was there physically observing it. Look in verse 1 if you would. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from helping me and from the words of my groaning? The very words that Jesus spoke as He hung on the cross is recorded in Matthew's Gospel in the 27th chapter. And then verse 2, oh my God, I cry in the daytime, but you do not hear. And in the night season, and am not silent. He's forsaken by the Father, utterly alone. The light of the Father is withdrawn from Him. And we're told in Matthew's Gospel that suddenly a great darkness came over the face of the land. And it was more than just a natural phenomenon. It was a spiritual statement indicating that it seemed that the powers of darkness held sway and had the upper hand. The hope of mankind is hanging disfigured on a cross. The light of the world is about to be extinguished. And the forecast for humanity? Darkness. But we know there was a reason that the light of the world was about to be extinguished. We understand why He died, but up to this point, it was a mystery. It was hidden. Even here in this psalm, it's hidden in a mystery. The Jews didn't understand it. Jesus' own disciples didn't understand it. Satan didn't understand it. The Scripture says if he did, he would not have crucified the Lord of glory. And so here, 1,000 years before Christ was crucified, we're given a picture. Look at the next few verses. Verse 4. Our fathers trusted in you. They trusted and you delivered them. They cried to you and were delivered. They trusted in you and were not ashamed. But I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. Well, we know that He was reproached and despised by the people, but He said, I'm a worm. It's interesting. It's actually the Hebrew word tola. It's also known as the crimson grub. Very interesting. These crimson grubs were used to make a dye to dye the garments of royalty. Literally to dye a king's garments. They were crushed, and their blood made this dye that they would make garments of. And the picture is this. Jesus is being crushed under the weight of our sins, and His precious blood is putting us in royal garments. We become kings and priests unto our God. We are given the robes of righteousness because of Christ's sacrifice. You know, We were vacation years and years ago. The kids were all small, and I took a day and went golfing by myself, and they hooked me up with another guy, and we really hit it off. Me and this guy are laughing, and we found a lot in common we're talking about. And it might have been halfway through the round, he told me that he was in the linen business. And I just couldn't resist. I said, you know, my boss is in the linen business. He said, really? I said, yeah, he gives you shining white garments for filthy rags. I said, and the cleaning agent he uses is his own precious blood. It gets out every stain. And he looks at me and says, it's going to be that way, is it? And we laughed and actually spent the rest of the day hitting golf balls and talking about God. But the truth is, Jesus was crushed so that we could be clothed with his righteousness and wear the garments of royalty. It goes on in verse 7. All those who see me ridicule me. They shoot out the lip. They shake the head, saying, he trusted in the Lord. Let him rescue him. Let him deliver him, since he delights in him. The very things that Matthew records that happened. He was ridiculed by the Jews, even by the thieves on the cross next to him. And they uttered these very words, and the scripture says they shook their heads as they said these very words verbatim to him as he hung upon the cross. We come to verse 16. For dogs have surrounded me. The congregation of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. That is extraordinary that David would pen those words. First, dogs was the way that Jews referred to the Gentiles, literally saying, Gentiles surround me, and it's Gentiles that pierced my hands and my feet. It was the Romans that pierced his hands and his feet. But it's even more extraordinary because the Jewish form of capital punishment was stoning. Crucifixion was not a Jewish thing. That was a Roman thing. And for David, 1,000 years in advance, to be so specific, to say they pierced my hands and feet, but he's not done. Verse 18, they divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. All four Gospels tell us that those Roman soldiers at the foot of the cross cast lots and gambled for Jesus' clothing. Now the whole demeanor and direction of this psalm shifts around verse 21 because a resurrection occurs, a church is born and commissioned. Now, as I said, I've taught on those things in detail, so we're going to leave it at that and move into the 23rd psalm, the most loved psalm. We all know it. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Until he becomes my shepherd, until it's personal, I'm just another lost sheep. You know, Isaiah 53 and verse 6 says, all we like sheep have gone astray. We've turned everyone to his own way, speaking of all humanity. And God didn't just randomly choose that analogy for lost humanity as a sheep, because of all animals, there's none quite so pitiful as a sheep when it becomes lost. A sheep can get hopelessly lost right next to home. They're not very bright. And that's why God uses them to describe humanity. You think about it. With all of our advancements, with all of our technology, there's still an utter lostness about us spiritually. No matter how cool and brilliant the other sheep are that you hang around with, they're still lost and they can't fill that empty place. We need a shepherd. We need to be found. But until I accept the finished work of the Savior in Psalm 22, I can never embrace him as shepherd, my shepherd, in Psalm 23. I have to first put my trust in what he's done in Psalm 22 and his sacrifice for me as Savior. And then, and only then, can I know him as my shepherd. And then we come to Psalm 24, the Psalm of the sovereign, the Psalm of the crown. And we begin in verse 1, the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein. The earth, everything in it, and everyone in it are His by right of creation. The Scripture says it's the Lord that has made us and not we ourselves. Verse 2, for He has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the waters, refers to the creation account in Genesis chapter 1, verses 9 and 10. Verse 3, who may ascend into the hill of the Lord, or who may stand in His holy place? The hill of the Lord refers to Mount Zion. The holy place refers to the temple, but metaphorically, it speaks of heaven. And it's a very good question. He's basically asking, who can ascend? Who can come into the presence of a holy God? Whether it's in the temple on earth, which is a copy of the true, or into heaven itself. Who can ascend and come before God? And he gives an answer to that in verse 4. He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to an idol nor sworn deceitfully. Clean hands and a pure heart. Clean hands meaning outward purity. A clean or pure heart, inward purity. It's not just a matter of outwardly being right, but it's inwardly being right. And then in verse 5, he says, he shall receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. This is Jacob, the generation of those who seek Him, who seek your face. And I like the NLT translation, says, such people may seek you and worship in your presence, O God of Jacob. The one with clean hands and a pure heart. All right, so what's the issue? Well, here's the issue. No one qualifies. No one measures up. That's why under the Old Testament, they had sin sacrifices so that people could approach God. But those sin sacrifices under the Old Covenant, they never washed away the stain of sin. They never removed the stain of sin. They never healed our inward brokenness. All they did was temporarily cover that sin for a year, but every year a remembrance was made once again. The sacrifice had to be offered over and over and over. Listen, Hebrews 10, verses 1 to 4. It says, for the law, having a shadow of the good things to come, and not the very image of the things, can never, with these same sacrifices, which they offer continually year by year, make those who approach perfect. For then would they not have ceased to be offered? For the worshipers, once purified, would have had no more consciousness of sins. But in those sacrifices there is a reminder of sins every year. For it is not possible that the blood of bulls and goats could take away sin. It just covered them. Once a year there was a covering, but what was underneath was still there. Every year could put the coat on and cover the brokenness and the stain of sin, but that's all it did. It just covered it. It was still there. And then again, I'm not changed inwardly. I'm still stained inwardly. I'm still broken inwardly. The sacrifice would be offered, but it wouldn't remove the stain. It wouldn't remove the sin. It wouldn't take away the brokenness. It would merely cover things up for another year. Now, it's actually worse than that. I want to quote to you from Romans chapter 3, verses 9 to 12, but these are actually quotes of King David himself in Psalm 53 and Psalm 14. The writer of Romans just lifts them out of the book of Psalms and quotes them here in Romans 3. In verse 9, he says, what then? Are we better than they? Not at all. For we have previously charged both Jews and Greeks that they are all under sin. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none who understands. There is no one who seeks after God. They have all turned aside. They have together become unprofitable. There is no one who does good, no, not one. Verse 23, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. My friend, all of our good works are not enough to make us right with a holy God. All of our personal sacrifice falls short and can never pay the price of our redemption. That's why we needed a Savior. On the cross, He paid a debt He did not owe. His very soul was made a sin sacrifice for us. He went into darkness so that we could come into the light. Jesus did battle with sin, with Satan, and with the forces of darkness, and He won. He defeated our adversary. He was raised victorious from the grave. Listen to it as it is described in the book of Colossians. This is Colossians 2, verses 14 and 15 from the Passion Translation. Listen to it. He canceled out every legal violation we had on our record and the old arrest warrant that stood to indict us. He erased it all, our sins, our stained soul. He deleted it all, and they cannot be retrieved. Everything we once were in Adam has been placed onto His cross and nailed permanently there as a public display of cancellation. Then Jesus made a public spectacle of all the powers and principalities of darkness, stripping away from them every weapon and all their spiritual authority and power to accuse us. And by the power of the cross, Jesus led them around as prisoners in a procession of triumph. He was not their prisoner, they were His. Oh my. Hebrews 2 and 14, it says, through death, He destroyed him that had the power of death, that is, the devil. That's why Jesus stands in Revelation 1:18 and says, yes, I was dead, but behold, I'm alive forevermore, and I have the keys of hell and of death. What a Savior. He shattered the darkness, broke the chains of sin, showed Himself alive to His disciples, and then ascended into heaven where He's going to sit at the right hand of His Father. But if you know your Bible, you know that at both the resurrection and at the ascension, angels were present. And at this point in Psalm 24, there's a shift. The scene shifts from earth to heaven. And it seems that this escort of angels that are bringing Him into His rightful place, into the throne room to be seated at the right hand of the Father, that they're crying out, and that the angels that are guarding the throne room are responding, and there's this dialogue between these two groups of angels that takes place in the psalm from this point on. And first we have the escorting delegation of angels. They cry out in verse 7, lift up your heads, O you gates, and be lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. The other angels respond in amazement. Who is this King of glory? And the response comes, the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. And then again, the escort of angels cry out, lift up your heads, O you gates. Lift up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. And seized with awe and amazement, the question comes again, who is this King of glory? And they respond, the Lord of hosts, literally the Lord of angel armies. He is the King of glory. Why the awed amazement of these angels guarding the throne room? Well, it's because they were there when the king left. And His throne has been empty for 33 years. And I imagine it often in my mind. Long corridor, angels stationed every so often, giant doors down at the end. And at this end, seated on their thrones, the Father and the Son are having a hushed conversation. But there's something different in the atmosphere, and every angel senses it. There almost seems to be a resignation and a sadness I've never experienced before. Jesus slowly gets up, walks down the steps, and walks down that corridor past the angels. Maybe they flick a glance at one another. What's going on? I don't know. He gets down to the end of that hallway to those doors and turns slowly as if to look at the Father one last time. And suddenly, he vanishes. He has emptied himself of every divine privilege and the dignity that it was rightfully his. And at that moment, he became the seed of a child in the womb of a virgin named Mary. He humbled himself and took on the form of a man. But now the scene has changed. Redemption has been accomplished. The great sacrifice has been made. Darkness has been defeated, and the King of Glory has returned to his throne. And he's the same, but somehow he's different. He's radiating splendor and glory. The angels are saying, lift up the gates, open the doors. And they say, we know it's him, but his hands, they're pierced. His feet, there's holes in his feet. His side has been wounded. His brow, his back. Who is this King of Glory that would leave his throne, leave his Father in heaven, leave the glory world and go down and die for his creation? Who is this King of Glory? My own heart cries the same thing. Who would do such a thing for me? But there's more, because when he walked into that most holy place, in essence, he brought us in with him. Heaven had been closed to us, but now its doors are open wide. Hebrews 9 and verse 12 declares, with his own blood, he entered the most holy place once for all, having obtained eternal redemption. We are now welcomed into the presence of a holy God without a sense of shame or guilt. Who can ascend the hill of the Lord? Who can come into his holy presence? Those that have been washed in the precious blood of the Lamb. He did it all for us, my friend. What a Savior. What a King.
What a Savior. I heard an old timer say one time, he saves from the uttermost to the guttermost. My friend, wherever you are on the spectrum of society, of humanity, listen, there's a Savior who died for you. Jesus nailed your sins to the cross, and he willingly died as your substitute. The wrath of God against the sin of the world was poured out on his own innocent Son, who willingly paid our debt. The way now into the holiest of all, into God's presence in heaven, is now open to us because of what Jesus Christ has done. Listen, if you've never opened your heart to him, there's no better time than right now. Wherever you might happen to be watching this, listen, God is right there by his Spirit, I believe, speaking to your heart. He loves you so much. He's paid so much to redeem you and to bring you into his family, to wash you clean and give you a new life. Just from your heart, say, Jesus, come into my life. Be my Lord. Be my Savior. Jesus, I want to follow you. I want to serve you. If you'll pray a prayer like that, or if you just did that right now, following after me, listen, he heard you. He hears the cry of every heart. And listen, he'll never leave you. He will never forsake you. Let me pray for you. Father, I ask you to bless my friend right now. Whatever they're going through, whatever they're facing, I pray, Lord, that you'd show yourself strong in their behalf. I ask you to intervene in the affairs of their life. Give them wisdom. Give them strength. In Jesus' name. And I just wanted to say thank you to those of you that support us financially. We couldn't do what we do without your gifts, without your prayers. We are so grateful. Thank you for sharing.
We have a daily email devotional that I believe can be of great benefit to you. You know, when we take God's Word in every day, it helps us become established in the Lord.
Make room in your daily schedule for God's Word by signing up for Bayless's devotionals, available on your phone, tablet, or PC.
Take time to sow the seeds of God's Word into your life every day with this free email devotional. If you don't have a copy of my daily devotional, Answers for Each Day, I'd like to encourage you to get one. It's a way to help discipline yourself to get some of the Word of God into your heart every day. And you know, the Scripture says that the inward man is renewed day by day. Jesus said man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. So you can get your daily spiritual bread, at least part of it, by reading that daily devotional every morning or every night. I give some thoughts. We share a bit on different scriptures and principles from the Bible. It'll be a blessing to you.
Use the information on the screen to get your copy of Bayless Conley's devotional book, Answers for Each Day, for the special price. Start each day by focusing on God's truth and building a stronger faith in God.